I have Justin and Corey left. Heidi's gonna be late. She got called into a meeting this morning. We have 5, which is a good thing.
Okay,
But Justin and Corey were gonna join us, so I haven't heard anything from them.
well, why don't we go ahead and call our meeting to order, and we'll just take care of the things we can before we do the discussion with your job, okay? So let's go ahead and call our meeting to order. Welcome, everybody. Thank you for willingness to change the time this morning. And I know some of you are traveling, so we're going to try and get done as soon as we can. First item, we have the consent agenda.
Make a motion to approve.
Thanks, Mitch.
I'll second.
Thanks, Chris. Is there any discussion with the consent agenda? All right, hearing none. All those in favor of approving the consent agenda, say aye.
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 Those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. All right, moving on to our, well, let's see here. I wonder if we should do the annual work plan before we go into your director's report. Kyle, is that okay with you?
Yeah. Yep, we can.
Okay, let's go ahead and do the monitoring report. There's a couple of them there that I think are kind of important. Each one of those, these are relatively new to us, but we can approve them all together. But I wanted to make just a quick note about the BED4 authority of the executive director. This one will be kind of important as we move forward looking for a new director. And if you look, it tells you a little bit, not so much job description, but talking about what authority we give our director based on our goals and strategic planning. And especially number 2, when it says that they don't necessarily need to seek our approval for every decision that's made, as long as they're following the guidelines of what we set up in our strategic plan and our goals. So I just wanted to make sure, does everyone kind of feel like we're still on page with that one? To me, that gives them the authority to get the job done that we tell them they want to, what we need them to do. That was the only thing in that one that I wanted to draw attention. Does anyone else have any questions or discussion about the other 4 or the BED4?
I just put up a little bit of a, we just put a PowerPoint on it, just a little bit, just so people could see it if they wanted to, if they didn't have it right in front of them. Again, this is the roles and responsibilities. Again, I just want to point out one thing on the policy monitoring on that, it says bring any concerns, ideas from stakeholders to the attention of the governing board. Again, as we have conversations, like we had a superintendent's meeting and people, and you'll talk about it later, asked about providing input, how we set things up in regions. That's kind of what the process for input can be. It can be deeper than that if the board wants it to be, but as a roles and responsibilities, that's part of the responsibility of a board member in that region to provide that, to get that input and then provide that within the board meeting. I just wanted to point that out.
Very good point, Kyle.
Yeah, and then again, I mean, we went, I don't have anything in regards to add to what Patty said on these. I just wanted to have a slide together if people wanted to look at them a little bit careful or had a discussion point on them. When we reviewed them internally, we thought they were fine too. I will point out on this particular monitoring thing on number 9, bullet point number 9, from a communication and partnership standpoint, it does say executive committee on number 9. It probably should say planning committee, because that's where we're really taking some of those discussions on new programs and partnerships. So we may update that, or that's just a consideration. If this is something the board has to approve to update, I would suggest changing that to the planning committee at this point, because that actually is what the process is.
Does anyone have any objection to changing from executive to planning committee? It would make sense to me because that's what we just started.
Correct. So if that's okay, I will do that. If you want to vote on it, that's fine too. It's up to you, Patty.
Do we want to take a vote on changing it from executive to planning committee? I think we should accept a motion, that especially since they're new, to make sure it's in the record that we acknowledged and changed it. So if someone would make a motion to do that, I would appreciate it.
So moved.
Thank you, Mitch.
Second.
Thank you, Brittany. Is there any discussion? Any discussion? All those in favor of making the change from executive to planning committee in 9, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Okay, motion carries. So let's go ahead then and can we go ahead and accept all of the monitoring items in one motion then for those?
So what's the motion here, Patty?
Oh, we need to approve the monitoring action items just to say that we review GP2, GP3, 4, 6, and the R2.
Oh, you're
Just for
moving.
review, just the bottom,
Okay.
yeah.
Okay,
We'll go back up to the executive reports.
I'll make that motion.
Thank you.
Second.
Thank you, Chris. Is there any discussion with the monitoring items for the reports? All right, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. All right, we're gonna move back then up to the executive report and updates.
I really don't have any updates, that I think are crucial at this point in time. I think it's just important to kind of move on and make sure we have enough time to discuss the executive search. Again, I just want to make a comment because I really trying to stay out of this process, so I'll make my comment here. So I've had a number of calls, people asking me about the job, and what I do, and I've been reflecting on that. And, as you have discussions and, people ask, do we want input on characteristics or what, so as I reflected on it a little bit is really my job has been to drive revenue, right? To drive projects, and that doesn't mean our staff isn't involved, but they're the ones that execute it a majority of the time. But when you look at NDFIT, you look at our business services, you look at Medicaid billing, you look at, I wrote the original 21st Century Grant, all of those things are a characteristic of being somebody that is a self-starter and is driven. It's not a reactionary job. Like I'll just use a school soup. When you go to school as a principal every day, your schedule is never what you anticipate, is my guess, right? When I talk to my son, it's like, I got 2 things out of the 10 I wanted to get done because I had to deal with all these things. My guess as a superintendent is the same. This job is not like that. You do not have people coming at you constantly. You have to be out there driving and initiating that and being a self-starter to do that. So I just wanted to share that with you as I reflected in talking to other people about the job and helping them understand what I do. So with that, again, I just want to express my appreciation to the board. We've had a long, for all the flexibility and the support through the years. I think that's really valuable, the expertise and the longevity we've had on the board. It's a complex organization. And again, as my wife said, you're not retiring, you're being redeployed. So we will figure out what to do from there. And thanks to Brittany, I have my grandchild moving closer. So we're excited about spending more time with family. So thank you.
All right, well then let's move into the resignation request then.
Are you
I
looking
have
for a
more to say. I
motion?
would just move to accept.
Yep, looking for a motion.
They don't.
This is Corey. I would move to accept.
Thank you, Corey.
Second.
Thank you, Brittany. Is there any discussion?
No, just thank you, Kyle, for the years of service that you've done, and the SEC has moved quite extensively over the past many years, so in a positive direction.
Thank you.
I think other REAs look to see what you're doing in this program and emulate that. So that says a lot for you too, Kyle.
And the staff, thanks.
All right, any other discussion? Should we do a roll call vote for this one? Doesn't matter. All right. All those in favor of accepting Kyle's resignation, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed, same sign. All right, motion carries. All right, let's move on to our executive search and the process that we want to take and review job descriptions or what first steps are. So we're looking to start from the beginning since we haven't had to do this before. I'm looking for some expertise from our superintendents. You guys have been through this before. I've got to hire superintendents, but never executive directors for this organization. So, so the first one, if you look at our policy for the executive, we have our executive team who we would have said in our policy that would be part of the hiring process. We don't have to follow that. That was the guideline that we set up originally for part of the succession plan. So I'm looking for input. Where should we begin? I think the executive team, we had Corey, Justin, Jim, and myself were part of that, but
So as the policy reads then, Patty, it'd be you four really leading and conducting, interviewing, and then ultimately bringing a recommendation to the board. Is that correct?
right. And you know, it can be that group can also narrow the search and bring it back for a full board to be part of the interview process too. I think we want to keep it as simple as we can, but you know, make sure everyone's included, but we need to make sure we have all the information we need in order to lead that team. So,
You know, every school does it differently on hiring a super. I look at this similar to a superintendent hire. Very similar, even though it's not a school, but it's very similar. You know, and I guess every board does it differently. When our board, if we hire a superintendent, we have everybody involved with the interview process, but not saying we have to do it this way, but trying to get everybody involved, I should say, as possible. You know, I had a couple of emails about saying, hey, can we survey the superintendents in the SEC about what the qualities we want or what do we want in an executive director? I've had that request, I should say. You know, and I know I talked to a couple of superintendents we talked to is, you know, I think Brittany went through it just with hiring a principal about involving your stakeholders a little bit. Not saying in the process of hiring, but just in the process of what we want in an executive director.
Yeah, it certainly doesn't hurt. Whether it's from superintendents, you know, SEEC staff also, you know, I think their input matters too. Yeah, whether we hire a superintendent, principal, we want to hear from our staff what they're looking for, whether it's school district, school board members to have the opportunity. I don't know how involved they would be, but at least to have the opportunity. It could be informative to help guide that process. There could be thought of, I know, like a couple of rounds of interviews also, like whether it's an initial one and then a finalists could go to a full board too.
That's kind of what I was thinking, Brittany, because and it depends how many people you get to apply for the job, that generally you want to narrow it down to a more manageable number. And that's what we'd probably do in our district, is that if you have a bunch, somebody narrows it down to a smaller group. And then from that, a larger group looks at part of the interview process.
I like that idea too, is having the committee narrow it down to 2 or 3, and then maybe having the full board involved in the process of the final 2 type deal.
Mm-hmm.
Unless we go 3 or 2 or 3 max, 2 minimum.
That's kind of a nice number, because sometimes people back out at the last moment too. So if you only have two, you might be left with one, may or may not be where you're at, but
Mhm.
what do you think the process of looking, when we're talking about getting stakeholder information, is that something that you'd want the smaller group to sort of take on? I mean, are we looking to do a, Survey Monkey? How do you think we might do that process? Because it'd be a lot of data to sort through. What do you think that will look like?
Yeah, because we have 32 districts, correct?
Hmm.
I think it's 32. It's nice to have something, I don't know. Some have that rating system of what qualities you want in a superintendent, rate the highest quality that we're looking for, and maybe having one open-ended question also type deal where they can, something that's not covered. I think short and simple is the best way to do it, though.
Mhm.
No-
Do you
no
feel
more
like we need that information before we can even determine if we're going to try and do this locally or get a firm handle that? Because I think that sort of ties into our job description to make sure we're not missing anything in the description before we put it out for people to apply. I mean, I would think we need that information ahead of time. Would you agree, or am I?
Well, I wouldn't think so. I think you can put it out there and have people apply.
I think
Patty,
so.
I think
too.
you can run a parallel process.
Yeah,
I don't think it's going to change the key, probably won't change the key responsibilities right now. There might be specific things that my guess, my prediction is that from the survey, we probably wouldn't get anything shocking. It probably very much is just more like preferences and more just aligned to best leadership, best practices in leadership anyway. So I don't think we'd have to wait for it.
It could formulate the questions that we ask the candidates too, from
Yeah.
those that we get from our stakeholders.
I think that's a good point, Patty, because a lot of those questions can be directed toward some of the survey questions or possibilities.
Okay.
I think as far as that survey is considered, I think it's good for that to come from that higher executive committee or whoever's actually doing that screening process. So whether it's, I suppose most logically it would be Patty or Justin as lead administrator to send that. I mean, I guess if I'm a superintendent, that's who I want the survey from.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think right now that committee, like I said, it's Jim and I, Corey and Justin. So we have 2 school board members and 2 superintendents. Are you okay with that mix? If we get more than that, then we have quorum issues. So what are your thoughts?
I'm very comfortable with those 4.
Okay. Corey, are you okay with being a part of that? I know Justin's not here. I'm assuming, and if somebody's not, we can find a replacement for him, but. Okay.
In terms of your question, Patty, about the, search firm or local, and maybe we don't have the answer to this, but I'd imagine a search firm would both, help the process, help kind of get things moving, that less on the board maybe, but then maybe their reach is further in terms of outside of the area. And I only say that to say, is that something the board is okay with? Is this a position that a quote outsider, not from the region, is able to take on? Do we feel like, again, I might be getting ahead of myself, but I'm in just relation to this question about how we're doing the search. Is it going to be important for us to have someone that's familiar with the state and the region? Because then if so, that impact whether we would want to use a search firm?
I don't know about you, personally, I feel that it's very important that they understand North Dakota and education, but I am totally open to what your guys' thought process. I think there's a lot of great candidates that we have locally, and I wondered if we did locally, and if you don't get enough candidate pool, if we could change strategy then and go a larger area. But you guys know the pool probably better than I do.
Well, it's hard to say on this one because we're familiar with superintendent's pools, but executive director for SEC, I'm not sure.
And like Kyle said, this is sort of a business orientated role. You know, it's a little different than superintendents, but
So I'm trying to figure out how to share my screen and I'm just blanking it out. But our national association, we can list out there the job opening for free. And so that's an option to get it out there outside of North Dakota, just to have it out there. So this is a place where all the education service agencies are members and they go out there and interact. It's a really strong organization. So we could list it out there for free. They also do searches, and I'll share the link. But I was just trying to share my screen right now and I'm kind of.
well, that would kind of answer our question to get some outside for
Yeah,
free, which
that would get some exposure to that. That would get some exposure to outside of our region, just to understand it a little bit. So this is the Association for Education Service Agencies, and this is one of the services that they offer. And I'm not going to read it to you or anything, but if you go down there, if you scroll down a little bit, they will list it online. Brenna and I looked last night. Yeah. Yeah, so they will list it here. You know, there's two of them, one from New York and one from Oregon currently listed on there. So that would get us some exposure outside of the region, which I think is a good idea. I mean, personally, it doesn't hurt, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you said that's free, Kyle?
That's free. Their next level, you know, I'm guessing it's about $3,500, their next level to 5,000, right? That's usually what a search costs. We didn't ask, but that's my guess.
Yeah. Then I think I like the idea, like you mentioned, Patty, of starting locally, then potentially if the planning committee wants to use this location to post it nationally, and hopefully we get solid candidates through those, and if not, we can revisit.
How does everyone else feel about that?
Well, can we just do it parallel at the same time? Because if we put it locally and we get 3 applicants, are we satisfied with 3 applicants and then we go national? That just drags it out longer too.
I was saying, Mitch, instead of hiring like a search firm.
Oh, instead of hiring a search firm.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
I say post it on this national site at the same time, but not
Okay.
hire a search firm.
Yeah.
Okay.
I would agree. I'm not convinced that some of those national search firms really draw people that are going to be good fits for what we're looking for in this position. Not to say that they wouldn't be, but I think we should do that, advertise it nationally, and then be able to review our pool and decide if the strategy got us the pool that we think is acceptable.
We are going, I do have an email out to the chair of the association. He's out of Fergus Falls, Jeremy Kovash. And I was gonna ask Jeremy in Minnesota, is there a way for us to put it out in Minnesota? Because they have a large number of service agencies. Again, just trying to network, right? I mean, so if you guys think that's okay, that we're just trying to network a little bit.
I was just gonna say, on the AESA place, they may have resources to guide the process because they function like we are. They support REAs or ESCs, so they may just have resources to guide the process in terms of like the firm idea, but they may just have some supports in terms of process.
Yeah, we can look into that. Okay. So then we're okay with then doing the, go ahead and add it to that national website and then do local. Is there anything else that we need to be doing that we're missing?
And just so there's clarity, not that people probably don't get this, but we would put it on ND Ed Jobs And then we would send it out to all the superintendents in the SEC just to say, you know, they have a network of people, right? And, so there's, and then indeed, we would put it on, so that's where we would put out to, in addition to what we just talked about with AESA posting it there.
That sounds good to me. Does anyone else have any place else we're missing? And how long are we thinking? A couple weeks to get this started? When are we thinking would be a good closing date?
The minimum.
February
Again,
14th.
yeah, and again, just so everybody knows, I'm doing the talking, but Brenna is the point person on this. So we had talked about Friday, March 1st, which is, if we post it later this afternoon on ND Jobs, that's about 16 days. And in our policy, it says a minimum of 14 days.
That seems short. Maybe not. Maybe that's the strategy.
What's
Well-
that?
Just seems quick, but maybe that's the strategy.
Yeah, I mean, you get it out there. I mean, you don't have, you can leave it open, right? I'm just saying what the minimum amount of time is.
Okay.
That's all.
I'm thinking maybe we may want a little more time than that, especially time people are, I don't know where they're coming from, but if they're coming from school setting, that's quick turnaround. And if they're not, you know, what do you guys, what do you think, Corey?
I would suggest March 8th, I think another week would be sufficient. There's nothing that says you can't be setting up interviews and starting to do your checks during that, but I think another week, simply because you're also going to have some people that are going to be off school the next few days. So I think March 8th to me would be sufficient.
Is everybody okay with March 8th? I like
Yeah.
that idea. Okay, let's do March 8th then, Brenna.
Okay.
Okay, well, that'll be start one, and then I will have to get together. We'll get Justin and Jim and I and Corey together to start the next level. And, you know, if we need help, it's not like we can't come back to the full board, so. Or if we have any questions or directions or something else. Is there anything else that we need, Corey, from the group that I'm missing today? I think until we get started, we have a job description.
Well,
I
the
think
job description, we'll get it posted, and then I think we kind of have an idea of some potential questions just to ask, and we can brainstorm that to ask the member schools to gather. And we're gonna have to try to do that in a way that doesn't require us to dig through 41 pages of qualitative data. We're gonna have to we can figure that out, though, I think pretty easily.
Yeah. And Justin had sent a few, but if there's something else that we need specific from there, we can.
Yeah.
I
So-
think a rubric is going to be better, or yeah, you're right. Qualitative data to sift through 32 might be a ton of work, and I'm not sure that'll be as valuable.
So in our advertisement, are we gonna put a compensation range in there?
I would
know
say
the
so.
The policy, when I read it, it has on that second bullet item has it in there.
They usually ask for it on some of the sites. I suppose I can leave it blank, but
I'm just saying in our policy book, it says, you know, the compensation range becomes part of the position advertisement. So.
Don't you think you almost have to have that on there to eliminate on either end if they're, I'm open, but what range do we currently have? Maybe make it a wider range.
We currently have it about 120 to 140. That's what we brought forward, but Bren and I just put a range in there, right?
We could put depending on experience or qualifications.
Mm-hmm.
Is,
At the end of the day, the board can offer them whatever they want to.
if we're trying to attract the biggest pool and we can offer them ultimately what we want, then my opinion is we need to broaden the range. And maybe part of the research is seeing what other similar positions are paid both in around the state, but then also in whether we want to call it business or nonprofit executive directors within the Fargo-Moorhead area, because that's also who we may be attracting. I just wouldn't want to turn away potential candidates if we'd maybe pay them more anyway, and maybe we won't.
Is
Good
that
point,
total
Brittany.
compensation or salary?
Salary.
Okay.
Our benefit package is about 30, if you took every benefit, is about 35 to 40,000.
So what do you think we would put for the range? I mean, I'm kind of with Brittany. I think that's a little narrow. I don't want to, but discourage.
The minimum I'm looking, the minimum I'm guessing is 120. Is that the minimum we're looking at?
That's the proposal.
Yeah.
I
No.
can't imagine there's an executive director in this community that's less than that. I guess I don't know that for a fact, but I can't imagine that there is.
Just knowing from the nonprofit board I'm on, not even close. Like significantly higher.
And if
But
we're thinking about pulling someone who's either a sitting superintendent, and I know those all range, or in a similar position, it's got to be, I mean, it's a big responsibility. It's a big job, as Kyle knows. Like, it's got to be alluring.
So we're looking at that 160 to 175 range.
I think you can go, I mean, I think you can go up to 140 to that 175 range.
Why wouldn't we just start the 120 to 175? If we get somebody who is younger,
That'd be
less
fine.
qualifications, to give
Yeah.
some potential, because once you put it out there, it's hard to go back. You can't put 140 and then say, oh, by the way, you're going to get 110 or 120 based on experience. But I mean, I like a wider opportunity. So 120 to 175, is that enough, you think?
I think so.
I think that's a fair amount, yes.
Okay. So Brenna, 120 to 175
Got it.
range.
Would we
Sounds
put
good.
full health insurance also in there?
We don't offer full health insurance, but
Or-
I'll list the benefits, yeah, in some
List all
way.
the benefits, okay.
Yep.
Do we,
Yeah.
remind me, does this pay into TFFR?
Yep, we pay one side, SEEC does. If they're a teacher, yes, they get TFFR. And we do PERS if you're not.
Or not?
in
Okay.
Public, yep.
Okay.
Okay. What else do we need then?
So do you want, once these start rolling in, do you want me just to wait till March 8th, or you want them periodically? I would take it.
I think that I don't think you have to send them all as they come in, but we should probably have a date and start looking at them. Maybe we should talk with Jim and Justin, and Corey and I get together and figure out how we want to handle that.
Okay.
They're much busier than I, so might determine the process.
Okay.
Okay. What else do you need from us, Brenna? Since those are action items, they're not actually action items, so.
You guys think you'll come up with all the questions, or do you want some of us here to come up with any questions, or is that still to be determined?
I know Justin came up with some. I don't think, what do you think, Corey?
So we're
Yeah,
talking questions about the interview and questions about
Interview.
the survey. Which
For
one
the
are we
interview,
talking about?
I would lean on the staff. Like you're gonna know better on some of the things that you guys talk about and have internal. So I think our group can come with some of the general questions that are standard to most interviews. But staff wise, if you have specifics that you would like to address, please, I think you can get that information to us.
Okay.
Wouldn't some of those questions potentially be based around some of that stakeholder feedback too? What do the member schools want to know? Are we using some of that to formulate the questions?
Yeah, Derek, we would take that information to our group and formulate those questions from our stakeholders, from our schools. We'll have to find some generic question, like Corey said, not to have tons and tons of things to read through, but maybe so we can formulate it into more precise questions.
And will you guys be leading the way on the survey with the administrators?
Yeah,
Okay.
I'm curious, what do some of you guys, the SEEC staff, think about including the SEEC staff on the survey?
I think it's important, sorry, I'm here. I do think it's important to have a little bit of staff input just because we have so many different types of programs and so many different types of roles within our staff that it would be important for someone to have a sense of all the different kinds of things that might be coming at them, right?
good point, Carrie.
Are there any other stakeholder groups besides staff, superintendents, and school board members that would make sense to take that? Are those the main ones?
I
think that-
think of it.
I think that's a lot of, those are the directly impacted. And I'm thinking if you get more, we'd have a lot of data. Okay,
I don't know
Alright.
if you want to go here, but we work a lot with the other REAs. So I don't know that they're necessarily a stakeholder, but they're our partner a lot. So I don't know if you would feel like other directors of REAs, I mean, that person is gonna work closely with the other directors, and you can take the input for what you want if you collect it, but.
interesting thought. Okay. We'll put that on our possibility list. All right, so I think actually we have a plan then. So if we get it, go ahead and get listed on the sites that Kyle and Brenna had mentioned. We have a job description and we'll have the superintendents work towards getting some data from superintendents. I'll take care of the school boards. And if you, internally with the staff. And then we'll see with our executive group if there's anything we're missing after that, but I think that's a great place to start. Yeah, okay. I don't know that we need anything else on this morning. Oh, the last item we've talked about evaluation, but is there anything else that we want to talk about as far as the executive director search before we move on? Okay, and then I'll follow up you, Corey and Justin. We'll get Justin and Jim, and we'll see after you guys are back if we can't just set up a meeting next week, at least get a game plan started. And Brennan, maybe if you could be a part of that conversation when we do that through Teams would be great, so that we have the connection up with the staff.
Sure.
Does that sound good, Corey? Okay. All right. Well, let's move on then. The last item on here was just the executive director evaluation committee. And
I think we just need to appoint a committee for it. I mean, you're gonna wanna go through the evaluation maybe just a little bit as you're going through the hiring process. I think it would just be, I mean, you can still fire me here before the end of the contract, but I mean, just to see with the new strategic plan and just going through that process and making sure as you're looking at hiring somebody that it may be a benefit to just kind of review, and maybe it's the same committee. It's typically been about the same committee. Who has it been? Jim and Corey and Mitch, I think, have been the three actually that have done it in the past. So I don't know how you want to do that.
so you're thinking about evaluating what we currently have now and applying it to what a new person taking
No,
this.
you could apply it to me. It doesn't matter to me if you do or not.
Okay.
I mean, it might not be that relevant since I'm leaving, but at least you'd give a thought process to any changes you might want to make going forward as you're hiring a new person. And there's a new strategic plan.
Mhm.
We've never had a great process to evaluate the executive director. It's just never been it's never been something that's.
Personally, I think right now, I think we should put all our focus on replacement, and then if we need to talk about evaluation, even after we get the process started, I think we'll have a lot on our plate unless others
Yeah.
feel differently. I just doesn't rise to the top as a super high importance, and I don't know that we need to evaluate Kyle if he's already leaving. So unless somebody feels differently, or if we want to take, we'll get some of that stakeholder input from our staff already. If that doesn't answer some of our questions, maybe we'd want to know from them. Yeah.
I'm totally good. I'm totally good with it, but we just put it on the agenda, right? So
Okay.
I would agree with what you said, to be honest with you, but again, I think at some time along the process here in the next board meeting or so, just to revisit that evaluation. So as we're going through the hiring process, let's say by April 10th, we're able to have an executive session and hire somebody, maybe probably not that day necessarily, but the next board meeting, just review it and say, reflect on the hiring process. How does that line up with the evaluation going forward with the new person coming in, and just so when it's fresh in your mind, you're not backpedaling next year and trying to jumpstart that.
And you'll be gone, but we should work on a better evaluation process because it's important. I would think it's very important for you as superintendents. I know as school board members, but you have to at least have those conversations. How do you know what's going well, what we need to improve on if we don't actually evaluate? So, but that'll be for later. All right, anything else for this morning? I know we got some people traveling.
Yeah, just one question. Probably I know the answer, but is our relationship with Wapton College going to be severed now, or no relation anymore?
Correct.
Okay.
That'll be new.
So NDSEEC will hold the executive director contract, is what you're saying, Kyle?
That's there. So the interesting part of the whole process was we actually started a shared service model organization, and we shared service the executive director. You still have the potential to do that. That's still a possibility, right?
What would be the advantages of doing that? If we did that
So
shared?
that gets into a whole nother conversation that you'll have to have.
Okay.
But again, when you look at the goals of the executive director and you look at how the organization operates, if you bring somebody into the organization and their skill set is similar to everything that we have, that's just a $200,000 burden on the sustainability of the organization. If you bring somebody in that has capacity to add value, whether it be in special education, behavioral health, some backgrounds and those kinds of things, and you're partnering within what I will say is members of the SEEC, a special education unit out of Jamestown, CTE unit out of Valley City. It's those collaborative things that can happen that bring new expertise and leadership into the organization, but also brings in capacity. Because if you don't bring in new capacity to the organization and you just bring in overhead, that's dangerous for the long-term sustainability of the organization. Remember, we have $8 million of soft money, meaning we have $8 million of contracts that have a start and an end date. And so that balance is really important as you're looking at the organization, and you want to be open to ideas about how to make that fit based on the philosophy of the organization, and that's sharing services. We do that all the time.
I think that wouldn't be limited in our experience to just the executive director role, because that executive director role wouldn't necessarily be the only place we can do a shared services model.
We do it all.
So we do it at all levels of the
Yes,
organization.
we do it at all levels.
Mm.
So the answer to your question is yes, the SEC will probably hold the contract.
Good question, Mitch. All right, anything else for this morning? Thank you, everybody. I do appreciate it. I know this is going to be a little bit of a process, but I'm sure we can figure it out together. Enjoy the rest of your week. If you're traveling, safe travels. And Corey,
Happy Valentine's Day.
happy Valentine's Day. Corey, I'll touch base with everybody next week then, okay? Thanks, everyone. Have a good day.
Thanks.